Imagine a place that exists entirely within a paradox. A whole city, visible on any satellite map you pull up. The buildings are intact, the streets are all
A
there.
complete urban environment.
Exactly. And yet, no one can go in. Nobody lives there. Access, it's aggressively forbidden. It's this fundamental contradiction. A city that exists but doesn't live.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today we're going to be meticulously working through the source material that details this sealed enclave. Our goal here is to maintain a really calm documentary focus.
Sticking only to the facts.
Sticking only to the reported facts. We're going to define what's known about the city's physical status. We'll trace the timeline of its sealing. And I think most importantly, we'll scrutinize those persistent, unexplained gaps in the official story.
And that focus on fact is so essential because the facts themselves just seem to defy logic. I mean, when you think of an abandoned city, Chernobyl or old mining towns, you expect decay.
Right. You picture nature taking over, roofs caving in.
But the documents we've reviewed, they make it absolutely clear. This place defies that. It's not decaying. It's being actively, systematically preserved.
And this is where the sources really start to show the depth of the decision-making here. The city is on public maps. The basic structures are sound. But the preservation, it goes so much further than that.
What do you mean by that?
We're talking about ongoing, scheduled maintenance. The sources actually detail how things like streetlights are replaced, how the landscaping is kept under control, even the roads are maintained against, seasonal weather.
So this isn't a place that just hasn't fallen down yet. It's a place that's being made to look functional.
Precisely. If you were to look at it from a satellite or even from the perimeter, as some journalists have done, it appears ready for people to just move back in tomorrow.
That's the really unnerving part. The buildings are described as untouchable and deliberately empty. It feels less like neglect and more like active curation. Like a government is spending a huge amount of money to maintain a ghost town.
And we really have to emphasize the sheer cost and complexity of that. This isn't just a military base where you're protecting one asset. This is the entire infrastructure of a community.
Which leads to the first major unexplained factor in the sources, doesn't it? This continuous investment.
It does. The documentation says the power lines are active, the water systems are still pressurized, and crews are performing regular maintenance on things like sewer and communications lines.
When you think about a municipal budget, that's just an extraordinary cost. Usually, with abandonment, the first thing you do is cut the utilities.
Exactly. So the decision to bear that cost, to run a whole city's infrastructure that no one can use, it changes the whole story. It suggests the city has been kept, not forgotten, preserved for some kind of hidden, ongoing purpose that must outweigh this massive expense.
That distinction is just critical, isn't it, between passive abandonment and this active preservation. It makes you, the listener, really reconsider what abandoned even means when the state is so deeply involved.
So how did a place like this, a place requiring so much constant attention, get to this point?
Right, let's trace that timeline. The sources paint a very clear picture of what life used to be like. Before all the restrictions, it was just a normal place. Families, schools, shops.
The everyday rhythm of a community. And that normality is what makes the initial order so difficult to understand in hindsight. The sources trace it all back to a single order to evacuate.
And it wasn't framed as a permanent thing, was it?
No, not at all. That's the crucial point. Residents were told to leave, some were relocated permanently, but most were told it was until further notice. The sources really stress this detail, that notice, that implied return date. It just never came.
So people left thinking it was temporary.
They were operating under that assumption, yes. But that temporary measure, it just became permanent by default. The sealing process was very methodical.
How did that actually happen? What do the sources say?
Well, first came the roadblocks, just temporary ones. But they were quickly replaced with permanent, reinforced checkpoints. Permits to go back for your belongings, which were easy to get at first, became mandatory. And then, eventually, impossible.
And the security itself was serious.
The sources are very specific. They call it non-symbolic. This wasn't just a simple fence line to discourage people. We're talking layered security, cameras, barriers strong enough to stop vehicles, and a large number of armed guards.
That phrase, non-symbolic, is so important. It tells you the intent wasn't just to keep trespassers out. It was to enforce absolute state-level exclusion. The city didn't close. It was sealed.
It was. And the severity of it is key to understanding this huge timeline gap. What started as a temporary evacuation order has now stretched to decades of finality.
And that's clear from how they treated people who tried to go back.
Absolutely. The sources mention former residents, researchers, just curious people. They weren't just turned away politely. There were instances of people being detained, threatened, or getting formal warnings. It highlights the permanence of the decision, even though it was never publicly announced as such.
To take a normal community and turn it into a forbidden zone with that level of security,
Yeah.
all while saying it's temporary, that's a massive, unexplained shift.
And that's really the crux of it. You have this profound contradiction between the initial message, a temporary safety measure, and the long-term reality of aggressive, permanent exclusion. The security itself is physical proof of some internal reason for keeping it closed, a reason that's never been shared.
So if that's the reality on the ground, what's the official story? Let's turn to the language used in public statements, because this is where that classified silence really takes over.
The language is incredibly consistent according to all the sources. The phrasing was always carefully chosen. The area was called restricted. Entry was forbidden because of unsafe conditions or for long-term environmental stabilization.
And always framed as temporary.
Always. With reviews happening at some unspecified future date. But of course, those statements are completely undermined by the lack of any actual data.
Right. The sources confirmed that timelines for lifting the restrictions were just never provided. Reports on the city's condition were partial, full of sanitized data points. And the key documents, the ones outlining the original decision, all classified.
So it immediately makes you ask, what information is so sensitive that it requires this level of classification? Access requests were denied across the board. From former residents, from journalists, from academics.
And when journalists were allowed anywhere near, it was under very tight control.
Heavily scripted conditions. They were only allowed to see what they were meant to see. The message to anyone trying to get in was always the same: you're not meant to be here.
That level of information control around a place that was, not so long ago, a civilian town, that's maybe the most disturbing part of all this. You have the official caution, it's unsafe, next to this absolute aggressive control.
And the official claims about unsafe conditions, they just don't hold up against the evidence of active maintenance. This is a critical point.
Because the utility workers are going in.
Exactly. The documents confirm they have regular access. So if the environment is stable enough for maintenance crews to go in to operate power and water systems, why is it too unsafe for a former resident to grab a box of old photos?
That discrepancy, it feels like the biggest knowledge gap the sources point to.
Mm-hmm.
The public statements about safety are completely contradicted by the need for such aggressive security. The risk has to be something other than, a building falling down.
Precisely. We're left with the real reason for the restrictions as the single largest piece of missing information. The city is being maintained at immense cost, guarded with non-symbolic force, and the rationale is just hidden behind classification.
It really changes your understanding of geography, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Here's a city that exists in every physical way. It's powered, it's on the map, but it's been surgically removed from public life by an administrative decision. It's an artifact of pure control.
That is the essential summary we can pull from the source material. We've looked at the preservation, the finality of its sealing, and the control of the narrative. We have a lot of facts, but no real answers.
And as we conclude this deep dive, we have to return to those unresolved questions that are based purely on the evidence. We have to avoid speculation, but we also have to acknowledge what's missing.
First, if that original decision was so carefully labeled temporary, what unseen metric, what ongoing operational need is preventing that notice from ever being lifted?
Second, with this high level of security and the very expensive, very real maintenance of its utilities, what is the specific non-public purpose being served by keeping this entire city operational but completely empty?
And finally, what classified information could possibly exist that justifies denying access to the people who used to live there, while at the same time requiring active, regular work from specialized maintenance crews? Their presence signals a hidden purpose. If a place is perfectly preserved, visible, but forever forbidden, what does that tell you about the power that governs that space? Is it even a city anymore, or is it just an immensely complex prop?